Hello YouTube, welcome to the 15th episode of Suggestion Showcase, where today I will be once again reviewing one of Aero Vulcan's XH558 suggestions. This suggestion is about the Nimrod MRA.4. This is quite a long suggestion, so get a cup of tea and let's start. Introduction. The Nimrod MRA.4 was an upgrade to the MR2 that was cancelled during the test phase and has been mired in controversy since. The cancellation of the program also coincided with the end of the MR2 service life, and thus the end of the Nimrod itself. The importance of anti-submarine warfare. The Nimrod MR2 was a workhorse of the Royal Air Force, flying every day at day or night, or in bad weather conditions. In order to make sure that the maritime boundaries of the UK were not being compromised, that vessels were obeying UK laws, conducting SAR operations, and most importantly keeping track of prowling Soviet submarines in the North Sea and the Atlantic. Their importance to the UK national safety was paramount. Submarines were not only a threat to shipping, but also a threat to civilization in general. A single submarine could carry numerous missiles, each of which would bring Armageddon to all of humanity. Hundreds of such type of submarines were in service with the Soviet Navy. Even the collapse of the Iron Curtain and the Soviet Union, the job of the Nimrod was not over, with ex-Soviet diesel-electric submarines being proliferated around the globe. The mighty Hunter, as the Nimrod was known, a name well-deserved, prowled over the ocean, with the safety of civilization on its shoulders, a burden shared by all anti-submarine warfare types. Development. However, by now the MR2 began showing its age, and it was necessary for a new type to replace it. Design studies had been ongoing since the 70s, as the MR1 was deemed only a temporary solution. Many studies were conducted, including ones based off the BAC 1-11 and VC10. However, it was decided to stick with the Nimrod and upgrade it to the MR2 standard. However, by the late 80s, it was deemed necessary to begin drawing up a replacement for the MR2 that could enter service by the early 2000s, when the MR2 was expected to reach the ends of its service life. So, in the period between 1989 and 1993, numerous design studies were conducted to find the ideal replacement for the Nimrod. The studies were wide-ranging, with dedicated new-build anti-submarine warfare, powered by a wide variety of engines, ranging from turboprops to turbofans and prop fans, as well as conversions of airliners and transport aircraft. The latter had already been successful, with the Nimrod itself being a conversion of the Comet 4, and in other countries too, the P3 Orion being a conversion of the L188 Electra, and the IL-38 being a conversion of the IL-18 airliner. Other options were proposed, such as numerous modernized versions of the P3 Orion, including the abortive P7 and a Breguet Atlantic 3. Both of these options were dismissed by the air staff, as it was believed that a legacy turboprop aircraft would be a step backwards for the Royal Air Force, which had operated the jet-powered Nimrod successfully for nearly 30 years at this point. The conversion of the airliners was considered to be a non-starter, as the air staff required 4 engines, and all modern aircraft of its size and weight class necessary were twin-engined and completely new aircraft, though the best option was the one that was the most risky and expensive. The best solution came in the form of the BAE Woodford FEMA, which would eventually evolve into the A400M Atlas after a long gestation period. However, it wouldn't be for another 2 good decades that this would enter service, so it was chosen to upgrade the Nimrod. At the time, it was seen as a great idea, since the Nimrod and Comet before it had long been familiar to the BAE and Royal Air Force, at least in theory. Description. The MRA.4 was essentially a complete rebuild of the MR2, with new wings, engines, engine nacelles, and avionics. The flight deck was completely brand new, with the latest technology, with the original cockpit being replaced by a glass cockpit, and observers getting new displays, with a new anti-submarine warfare equipment. Parts of the tail had to be modified and strengthened in order to deal with the new avionics and with the changed aerodynamics that the new engines brought. The entire fuselage was relifted in order to extend its service life. With such a huge redesign of the aircraft, there were obviously going to be some problems, and there were many. Arising problems. Originally, the Nimrod 2000, as the MRA.4 was then known, was intended to be an upgrade, re-engineering and refurbishment of the Nimrod MR2. Originally, Flight Refueling Limited was to carry out refurbishment. However, on inspection, it was found that the airframes were not built to common standard, and BAE took over their work, and the airframes were moved to Woodford. These differences occurred because the original Comet airframes, which the Nimrod was based on, were hand-built, and were each different in certain ways. Additionally, the jigs were used to build the Nimrod MR1 airframes had been stored outside for decades, and were beyond usable by now. There were also multiple flaws found in the wing, so these had to be completely rebuilt. Although the original wing design was kept, a new fly-by-wire system had to be developed for the aircraft, which itself brought numerous development problems. Costs mounted as delays increased, while the order was constantly reduced, making the program less sustainable. The original order reduced to 18 in 2002, 16 in 2004, 12 in 2006, and ultimately 9 in 2008. It was as if the situation for the MRA.4 couldn't get any worse, but it did. Though the MRA.4 was never involved in any accidents or incidents, the predecessor, the MR2, was subject to intense scrutiny in the last 5 years of its service. There were 2 incidents that revealed certain flaws within the design that would plague the MRA.4 program until its dying day. Since the aircraft was a conversion of older models, it inherited many of its flaws. These would have had been fixed, adding further cost. XW666 was a Nimrod R1, a signals intelligence variant of the Nimrod. On the 16th of May 1995, the aircraft was flying over the Moray Firth after some routine maintenance, when number 4 engine suffered a catastrophic engine failure. This caused a turbine blade to puncture one of the fuel tanks, causing a major engine fire that threatened to burn to the wing. Flight Lieutenant Art Stacy managed to ditch the aircraft in Moray Firth, with his skills allowing the aircraft to safely come down, with all 7 crew members surviving, being picked up by the Sea King from RAF Lewismouth. The subsequent Board of Inquiry suggested various improvements to the entire fleet, mainly the fitting out of equipment and structure that reduced the risk posed by fire and catastrophic engine failure. However, these were not undertaken. XV230 was conducting a routine surveillance mission on the 6th of September when a fire broke out on the aircraft after a mid-air refueling. The aircraft succumbed to the flames and exploded, taking with it the life of 12 RAF personnel, a Royal Marine and a British Army soldier. The crash was the biggest loss of service personnel combat since the Falklands War. An investigation and subsequent inquiry revealed damning evidence of design flaws and safety breaches spanning 40 years. The coroner's report stated that the Nimrod was not airworthy and had not been since the IFR probes were fitted in the 1980s. An independent review under Charles Haddon Cave, QC, was highly critical of those involved in the Nimrod program and revealed numerous faults, 3 of which in particular, these being: number 1, a crossfeed duct installed in the original MR1 build that fed air from the APU to the engines was found to be a major source of ignition. Number 2, the MR2 upgrade added a supplementary air conditioning pack, which increased potential for ignition. Number 3, the post-Falklands installation of the in-flight refueling probe, which greatly increased the risk of an uncontained escape of fuel. The report was also critical of the Nimrod safety case. A safety case is basically a structured argument that is supported by evidence that a system is able to function safely in a given environment. Haddon Cave was also critical of how the Royal Air Force and MOD handled legacy aircraft, as funds have not been properly allocated for the proper maintenance and inspections for these aircraft, essentially stating that penny pinching was put above the safety of the personnel. Finally, he was also critical about the Royal Air Force and MOD not holding up their part for a military convent. The military convent is essentially an informal agreement whereby the armed forces provide for the needs of personnel are addressed to, though having no basis whatsoever in British law. The military convent whose legal status in the years following 2001. This damning report clearly showed that the writing was on the wall for the Nimrod. Cancellation. With mounting delays and economic crisis and safety concerns regarding the fleet, the MRA.4 was cancelled in 2010, Defense Review, and the airframes cut up for scrap. The program has been a controversial topic ever since. It has been the source of numerous arguments and debates ever since. The aircraft itself, and those who worked on it, were not and are not to blame for the failure of the program. It was the procurement system in which it was ordered. The aircraft failed because the procurement process failed. The aircraft should not have been built in the first place. It was going to be riddled with flaws, delays and problems from the outset, and an effort to save money by using what was in place turned out to be another case of billions of pounds being flushed down the toilet. In essence, the project was dead before conception. Those who worked on the program did as best as they could to rectify the issues and work with what they had. The Nimrod MR2 fleet was also retired, with some being preserved, with the rest meeting the same fate of the MRA.4 cousins, the blowtorch and cutter of the scrapper. The mighty hunter had been laid to rest. Conclusion. I believe that this would make for an interesting addition to the game, due to the fact that the aircraft is unique, both from a historical perspective and the viewpoint of playstyle. So let's get into the specifications of the Nimrod MRA.4. First flight was on 26 August 2004. It had a crew of 10. Power plant was 4 Rolls-Royce BR710. Max speed was 496 knots. Service ceiling was 42,000 feet. The range was 6,910 nautical miles. Empty weight was 102,000 pounds. Maximum takeoff weight was 232,315 pounds. The wingspan was 127 feet. Wing area was 2,538 square foot. The length was 126 feet 9 inches. It had a height of 31 feet, and the production was 9 ordered, all conversions of the MR2, 5 completed, which were all scrapped. So let's get into the weaponry of the Nimrod MRA.4. It could carry A9L sidewinders, ASRAMs, Storm Shadow, AGM-84 harpoons, alarm, Stingray torpedoes, dumb bombs, and pave ray guided bombs. So thank you guys for watching. Remember, the suggestion was made by Vulcan XH558. The suggestion will be down in the description to go +1 it. Please remember to subscribe and like, and I'll see you guys in the next one.